Hi, I'm Carolyn Monahan. I am the Director of Marketing and Communications for the Michigan West Coast Chamber of Commerce. Today's member question of the day is revolving around workplace stress. I am joined today by Dr. Marcus Fila, who is a management professor at Hope College, who also speaks and consults on this subject. So he's our subject matter expert with us today, and I'd like to welcome you, Marcus.
Thank you, Caroline. It's a real pleasure to be here.
How would you define workplace stress?
Workplace stress is fundamentally about when the demands placed upon people exceed their abilities to cope. Now, that's not just a workload. That's not just about a quantitative amount of workload. It's about type of demands, appropriateness of demands. And some of the resources can also be things within the company that help us actually achieve this, some of the parameters around how we work and how we're able to work in the company.
This is more and more something that we're hearing about in the media. And I'm curious to know, what does the research suggest about workplace stress?
Well, I think the research says a very different set of things to what you hear in the business press typically and in the popular press. So essentially, most of the research on this subject, which has been going on for about 40 or 50 years now, I do some myself, I publish research myself in this space, and it really gets to this two-way, this almost teeter-totter effect of this subject, where it is actually a two-sided discussion between people, obviously employees, and the working environments that they're in. For example, the supervisors that they have, the parameters of the work that they do as designed by the companies that they're in. And I think most of the sort of popular press makes this a one-sided conversation. Most of it talks about, you go to the airport and buy one of the business magazines and they'll have an article occasionally on this. And they'll say sort of 7 ways to bust this at work. And they'll say, squeeze a ball at your desk, do some yoga, go for a walk at lunchtime. And this is not bad advice, Caroline. It's just inadequate advice because it focuses on one side of the equation while ignoring the other completely.
There's a lot that surrounds all of this. Like you said, there's
Yes.
the employer, the employee. What are some of the things that are commonly overlooked in this bigger picture?
I think most of it is that first of all, some of it is actually good. We're not trying to say get rid of it all. It's not practical. We need some of it to get up in the morning, to go to work, to achieve our goals, to do the things we're supposed to do. So it's not an elimination game. It's about reducing it to a healthy level where you can actually perform to your peak, basically. That's one thing. The second thing is, it's not a tug of war. It's not, I'm very much kind of pro the corporation, pro the company. I'm not coming at this from a perspective of, I'm for the employee and anti the corporation at all. I really want to help companies improve their bottom line through things like reducing burnout, reducing employee turnover, people that are walking out the door that they want to keep. So I want to encourage companies in this, that there is actually a lot within this that you can control by looking at not sort of tertiary interventions like what I just described, like again, squeezing a ball at your desk or something like that, but actually tweaks and small adjustments, often not things that are going to affect too much the chain of how work is carried out, but small tweaks that will really actually adjust people's perception of that work around things like the big ones are job autonomy and job control. I see huge issues, particularly in sort of fast-paced companies and industries where you have very highly educated, very driven people who don't always get the autonomy that they think that they should have. I used to, in the UK, before I moved to America, I used to headhunt accountancy partners. So very, very, very senior people. And always the reasons that they would move were around things like they're not getting the autonomy that they think they should have. They don't get the support systems that they think they should have. They feel too hemmed in. They feel rather micromanaged. And those tend to be sort of some of the major ones: support, control. Sometimes the boundaries of what they're responsible for are unclear to them. And those are some of the main ones.
So right now we're in this pandemic, doesn't seem to want to end anytime soon. Why is this issue especially important as we're navigating right now?
The big issue that I always encourage companies to get to, going back to your question about what is all of the research saying on this, going back for such a long time now, is that there are job design issues there that we can get to. And often this is ignored because frankly, we're so busy. Companies have got things that they have to achieve, right? There's not, they don't feel there's time to go in and redesign jobs around some of these issues. Where are the job descriptions even coming from? They're just so busy that they just get a broad idea of what should be done, and then they basically leave it at that. The number one issue is around this concept of illegitimacy. Everyone has a set of normative expectations about the career that they're in, the type of work that they do. They introduce themselves. I am a professor. I am a consultant. I do this. And most people in most companies, Caroline, are not in their first rodeo. Most people have had several previous jobs doing a very similar thing. And they build up a normative set of expectations of what this job should be. And then they go to a company, and that company is the only one that expects something different. And even things that they're expecting might not be too hard. They might not be tough things to do on their own, but you're sort of moving people away from the core of that professional identity. And people want to be loyal to the company, but they also want to protect that wider professional identity. Now, why is this important? Because in the pandemic, work has changed. Work has changed in so many ways that we're almost now forced to look at the redesign of jobs because of the pandemic. Even if it's simple as you're in the same job, working for the same company, and you're now working at home. We could write a list as long as your arm as to the ways that that is changing things. So there's an awful lot in there to unpack.
I would imagine that things like reduction in staff, as well as the disbursement of the team and keeping that connection between the team, could all factor into that.
It can do, very much so. And I think my overarching message to companies is this is not a tug of war. This is not we either put some kind of time and attention into this and that pulls away from profitability. Everything in the research and everything that I talk to companies about actually points the other way. Fold that piece of rope over, both the ends are pointing the same way. If companies put time and attention into a few key areas here, which you don't typically read about in some of those sort of common press articles, they would save an absolute ton on their bottom line in terms of turnover, in terms of absenteeism, in terms of burnout, in terms of people not performing as they should, or presenteeism when people are coming to work but they're not engaged as they should be.
I know there's a lot more that we could dig into about this topic, that we will include some more resources in our blog post to go along with this. So thank you for your time today.
It's a pleasure, and I'm happy to help.